right, welcome everybody. This is From the Bomb Shelter with Katie and Keith. And I'm Keith. I'm a former journalist, 5 daily newspapers, a talk radio station, and just all around news nerd.
You are. I am Katie. I am a former high school English teacher of over a decade, until 2022. I have a master's of education from Columbia University. My undergrad BA at Wake Forest, if you've heard of it, basketball fans, was in English with a minor in religion. So that's where we're coming from on our podcast.
Yeah, and I have
the apocalypse.
Next to Katie, I have this gigantically prestigious degree in mass media communications from the Cleveland State University. So,
oh, come on.
Yeah, but at the
We
same
all know
time,
that Ivy League is overrated.
but at the same time, I was a freshman at Cleveland State. I was working on the staff of the Cleveland Press. So,
oh, well,
I went out and got real world experience.
Exactly. You got the street smarts.
Yeah.
Is that the School of Hard Knocks?
Well, it's the school of a journalism newsroom that didn't play games.
Well, I can't imagine really knowing how to be a journalist just by getting a degree in college. So
imagine I'm 19 years old and I'm in this room and I've been reading the Cleveland Press since I was like, I don't know, 9, 10. I'm in the same newsroom with all my heroes, and I'm in sports, which makes it doubly, here I am. I'm 19 years old and I'm in a major market daily newspaper. And it was a heady experience. And then the paper folded, and I went down with it. But I wouldn't trade that year there for anything. So anyway, enough about us.
That's cool.
Of course, we're doing a lot of looking at the news right now and looking at what's going on and trying to make sense of it all as best we can. And something happened this week, I think, which brought a lot of our worries and concerns and just flat out frightening aspects of what's been happening to the fore here. And you may have seen in the National Cathedral there was a prayer service. And the Episcopalian bishop who is in charge of that cathedral in National, and I've been in there, it's a beautiful structure, gave the sermon and decided to speak truth to Donald Trump. And so
Trump was there for a photo op, is that right?
No, there's like, as part of the inauguration, there's always a prayer service for the incoming president.
A part of the official. Okay.
Right, it was a part of the official thing. So I want to play a little something for people just to sort of set the table.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land. May God grant us the strength and courage to honor the dignity of every human being, to speak the truth to one another in love, and walk humbly with each other and our God for the good of all people in this nation and the world. Amen.
It still takes my breath away. It really does.
She's a hero as far as I'm concerned. And for anyone who's confused about this, I posted about this on Threads, and some jackass was like, a woman can't be a priest or a pastor. I'm a Christian and I'm 40 years old. And I was like, I don't know what planet you live on, but, and I don't know if he was thinking like Catholic priest,
Right.
but this is Episcopalian. Yes, they have women, they have female priests, and she is not just a priest, she is a bishop. And actually, you can probably hear from my accent that I'm from Minnesota. And she actually is a former Minnesotan. She was at our Episcopalian church in St. Paul, I believe, for like 18 years before she went to Washington. So proud of that connection.
I think the thing that bothers me, this was a plea for mercy based on the gospel, the real gospel. Okay?
That Trump supposedly, he loves the Bible, right? He
And
can't even pick a favorite part because he loves the whole thing so much.
it's not so much Trump, because I expect nothing from him in terms of human feeling, but the response that from Trump world and from the religious Trump world community was what really shocked and depressed me, because basically they were saying this is weaponizing empathy, and empathy is bad. We
Yeah, I
can't.
saw someone say something about the sin of empathy on social media. Never heard of that
I saw it too,
category of sin.
and I was just flabbergasted. Have we come to a point in this country where the mere act of caring for another human being, regardless of their nationality or immigration status, is wrong to do simply because of who they are?
Oh, we've been there.
I know.
We saw that in his first administration.
It's hard for me, but now you have all these religious people who are coming out and saying, well, the real church, okay, our church, the church that we're going to ram down your throats, hates empathy.
Yeah, and I don't know what to say to I mean, like I said, I have a minor in religion, and I was a teacher for over a decade, and there's a lot of classic literature that makes biblical references. So being familiar with the Bible is really important to understanding and teaching literature. So I do not identify as a Christian, but I am extremely familiar with the Bible, and especially the Gospels. I don't know what Bible and what Gospels they are reading, because Jesus's whole deal was love and empathy, not judging other people.
I think we have this new Republican Jesus.
Right. It's their white, blue-eyed, gun-toting Jesus. It's not actual Jesus from the Bible. I don't know who they're worshiping.
But, again, these are the people that Trump is listening to. These are the pastors that he's listening to. And they're basically telling him that the new Christianity is based on cruelty. The American Christianity is based on cruelty, and we have to be, it's like that old song, Cruel to Be Kind, which is ridiculous.
Well, and that's the Old Testament God.
Oh, yeah.
The Old Testament God is cruel. But Christianity went through a Reformation, and is supposed to be based on the teachings of Jesus. So what they are practicing is not, it's doesn't match their actual theology.
They've deformed Christianity to get it to say what they wanted to say. And
any religion can do that. Of course.
Any tyrant can deform religion.
It's so shocking to me that so many people buy it. And maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe I should not have higher expectations than that, but like, open the Bible, read the Gospels. I posted something on Threads recently too about Jesus cleansing the temple. I don't know if you're familiar with the story where he goes into the temple where the money changers.
I was raised Catholic, believe me.
So you know that story. Well, that's the thing though. Which kind of Catholic? Were you allowed to actually read the Bible?
That's a good point. Yeah, we did read we were allowed to read the Bible as long as somebody else read it to us first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you get that.
So you got to hear about it in English too, not just Latin. So that's good.
Oh, I was born after Latin.
But so
Not
anyone
that
who's
old.
not familiar, this is, well, no, I meant when
I'm just
when
joking.
the church
I know.
decided to have priests turn around and actually preach to the
Second
congregation in English.
Second Vatican
Yes.
Council.
What was that, the 70s?
1963.
Okay, yeah. So for people who aren't familiar with this story, though, the money changers were people who exploited people who were there to worship God. People were there to exchange foreign currency and then maybe buy like an animal to sacrifice in the temple. And the money changers and merchants who were operating in the temple were exploiting people.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus gets pissed, and it depends on the version you're reading, because obviously there's different versions of the Bible, not suspicious at all. But he flips their tables over, and in some versions he uses a whip to drive them physically out of the temple and says, my house is a temple for God and you have made it a robber's den.
Mm-hmm.
So I posted a little bit about that, and then I said Jesus always stood up for the oppressed, for the poor. He did everything. He was all about subverting corrupt authority. Mm-hmm. That was what he always did. So just a reminder, and what that means is Jesus was woke as fuck. And of course, the people who that's going to trigger don't actually know what woke means. And so, of course, then I get this guy going, you don't get to talk about my master. And I'm like, what do you disagree with that I said? Besides the word woke, of course, because you don't know what that means. And whatever you think I'm saying is probably not what I mean. But he doesn't know. But I go and look at this guy's comments on other people's posts, and all he's doing is trolling people, calling them names, shitting on their happiness.
Right.
And I said, is this your idea of being Christ-like? Because you're saying you're a Christian and I'm not fit to talk about Jesus.
Ooh, I missed this one.
Like, and this is what it's become.
Yeah, because I post stalk you. No, I don't. I really don't. You just keep coming up in my threads, but I missed this exchange.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can send it to you. His name is Mark. I forget his last name.
It's funny though. He uses the term master. That tells me a lot right then and there. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, did you just find it? Yeah.
Nah, but it's interesting, you know.
Well, the other thing that pissed him off is that in the original post I said, friendly reminder from a witch. That disqualifies me from talking about Jesus, even if I'm quoting the Bible, according to Mark.
Yeah. We should mention, we had introduced ourselves. We did meet on Threads.
Yes.
We kind of randomed into each other on Threads, and I had the idea, hey, you want to do a podcast? Let's do a podcast. But my other concern really is for Bishop Buddy herself. Mm-hmm. One thing, this is truly a woman of God, and that just sets off a lot of the guys. You know, women of God are supposed to be trad wives in the kitchen. It's the old German Kirche, Kuche kitchen, you know, children, church, kitchen.
She's supposed to be at home making babies.
Mm-hmm.
and being quiet.
But she has been in the news before, and in 2018, she is the person who arranged for Matthew Shepard, who was a young gay man who was brutally murdered in Wyoming. His ashes had no resting place for 20 years because his parents were afraid to bury him for worry that his gravesite would be desecrated.
That's right.
But Bishop Buddy arranged to have his ashes interred in the National Cathedral alongside presidents and alongside people such as Helen Keller and Annie Sullivan. So she walks the walk all the time. And of course, Trump called her nasty, boring, not smart, blah, blah, blah. Basically a nasty woman. But the abuse that she got, which was totally predictable, online, and she was on Rachel Maddow's show, and Maddow talked to her about the death penalties that she was getting, or death threats.
Yeah.
And she basically laughed it off. She said, I have had people wish me dead. I'm not sure they have threatened to kill me, but they seem to be pleased if I met my eternal destination sooner rather than later. But see, go ahead.
This is where I said, so for those of you who don't know too, she actually has a book called How We Learn to Be Brave, which you said you saw that Nazis had been like review bombing it with 1 star.
Oh, sure.
But the good news is it's also been sold out on Amazon. Because so many people heard her sermon and loved what she said and want to support her. So, you know, that's where we are. That's kind of a microcosm of the culture war. But point being, her book is all about learning to be brave. So I think she fully expected the response that she's gotten. I don't think she expected Trump to suddenly have a change of heart and acting like an actual Christ-like Christian. I don't think that was the point for her. I think the point was to speak truth to power in front of the whole nation, which, like,
she did.
Yeah. And she made him look bad. And of course, that's going to piss him off. He's a total narcissist and completely misogynistic. And how dare she speak to me at all, much less contradict me. But yeah. And then so, of course, then his supporters are going to just follow suit and be angry at someone for asking the president of the United States to show mercy.
She made, according to them, a church service political, as if Jesus was never political.
Right?
I mean, yes, he said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but, you know, you cannot separate politics from the gospel. It's the old Catholic talking here, you know.
Well, and I just saw someone make a great point, too. These people who are trying to gaslight us about Elon Musk's Nazi salute at the inauguration and calling it a Roman salute, whatever the hell that is, which historians are like, that's not a thing. But even if you want to call it a Roman salute and pretend that's not the same as a Nazi salute, apparently the Nazis took that salute from Mussolini, which is where that connection came from. Okay, so that's the connection. That doesn't change the fact that it is also a Nazi salute. But the Romans are the ones who killed Jesus for speaking truth to power. They are the ones who crucified him for trying to subvert, corrupt authority. He was a political radical.
Yep.
And it is just the ultimate irony that people are literally siding with Trump over actual Jesus and doing it in the name of Christianity.
I think that's the thing that I guess I need to stop being naive about, that these people were Christians in the first place.
Yeah, no, they weren't.
Who's that? Who's the one? Is it John Pavlovich? You know what I'm talking about?
Author?
Yeah, who's the minister who basically took on his congregation and basically called them to be better than themselves. And he writes, he's on Threads, he's pretty much on all social media. Awesome. And you can read him. And basically this week he came out and said, you know what? I've spent so long giving these people the benefit of the
Benefit
doubt
of the
that maybe they were
doubt.
just misled. And no, they were never,
No,
never.
no. I just had that argument with someone on Threads too, because I posted this awesome video. I don't know the guy's last name, but his handle is It's Luke something. I don't know if you saw that. And he was ranting about the executive order that there are only two genders and that will be defined as whatever someone's gender is at conception. And he was pointing out that biologically that makes no sense because at conception, I think he says in the video, at conception, we don't have a gender, but then people pointed out in the comments, actually, we all start out as female. Either way, it makes no sense, was the point. And he's swearing a lot and calling Trump supporters dumb fucks, which I'm like, yeah. And it is time to call them out. And, you know, there were several people in the comments being like, this isn't the way. We can't respond to their hate with more hate. And we have to, you know, keep reaching out to them with compassion and empathy. I'm so sorry. A lot of us have done that for years. I was a teacher for over a decade, like during his entire first administration, during the COVID pandemic, when people refused to wear masks or get vaccinated. I was pregnant during that. I had a newborn during that. Those people who said they are pro-life were the same people who refused to wear masks around a 7-month pregnant woman to protect her from a virus, which we did not have a vaccine for yet.
Right.
You are pro-life my ass. And I am done giving those people the benefit of the doubt. I've been done for several years.
So let's be clear here that Katie and Keith give you all permission to be nasty to Nazis. Okay?
I'm not even saying, I mean, be angry, please. Like, yes, righteous anger is one of the most potent catalysts in human history. Be fucking angry. And call that shit out when it comes to your door, when you see it in public, when you need to defend someone who's being exploited or abused. I'm not saying seek those people out to fight with them. That's a waste of your energy.
Right.
And I would also say if you still have people in your life defending Trump, it might be time to consider cutting them off. I don't speak to my parents anymore for that reason.
No.
I tried for years. And so, you know, one of these people in my comments on this video was saying like, we all know most people haven't put their phones down and actually tried to have, you know, empathetic conversations with these people and understand where they're coming from. Fuck you.
No.
Yes, I have.
No.
For years, I have tried to do this with my own fucking parents. Don't come to me and tell me what I haven't tried already.
Yeah. If my parents...
I have earned my rage. Thank you very much. And especially for a white man to be telling a woman, don't be angry. This is not the way to convince anyone. I'm done trying to convince them. I don't give a shit. Nothing works anyway.
In case you were
I'm
wondering,
done trying to convince them.
Folks, Katie is a feminist. Just want to put that out there, you know, in case
wasn't clear.
In case it wasn't clear enough. But I know my parents, if they had lived, they would have been Trumpers. I'm absolutely convinced of it, and I would have cut them off.
I don't know what else you can do at this point.
I don't know. I don't know either.
Waste of energy.
They've shown you who they are. After all that's gone down.
Believe them.
And so let's go ahead and talk about the Elon seat hiling, because honestly, this is another facet of what we're talking about. People see what they want to see. Now, I will tell you this. This is just my take on it. I think 9 out of 10 people, regardless of their political beliefs, know that what Elon Musk did was a Nazi salute. The people who are saying that it's not are lying on purpose. Because it's political. They have to defend him at all costs. They have to defend this. They personally get off on the Nazi salute. They think that's boss, okay?
Well, see, but this is what confuses me. So if they like it, then why are they still trying to gaslight us that that's not what it was?
To own the libs. A lot of people just live to make us upset. to make us angry.
So they just think it's more upsetting to us.
Right, that they
To
won't.
gaslight us about
No,
it.
it's more upsetting to us that they won't acknowledge what any
What it
reasonable
was.
person could see with their own eyes. Now,
I mean, I just find it entertaining at this point, personally. Maybe that does upset some people, but yeah, again, I posted a video of Elon doing the salute twice on Threads, and it was from a slightly different angle than what some of the media outlets were showing. Yes, he did it twice, exactly the same way. And then I had all these trolls posting still shots of Democrats with their arm out at that angle, as if a still shot of someone gesturing or waving is the same. Like, how fucking stupid either are you, or do you think we are, that we're going to look at that and go, oh, you're right.
no,
They're all Nazis too, or else no one is.
no, they just want us to get angry that they're not acknowledging reality.
But it just makes them look stupid. Like, I'm just like, okay, maybe you have the IQ of a potato. The rest of us don't. So thanks for sharing, I guess.
No, they don't. What they're there to do is to spread propaganda, because if you throw this shit against a window pane like peas long enough, there are normies out there who are going to start believing it. And to those people, those people online who are basically trying to gaslight this whole issue, my attitude is, hey, take it up with your buddy neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes.
Yeah,
Okay?
let's hear that.
Let's hear that. And this is really shocking to me, because he basically gave away the whole ball game. Fuentes, if you don't know, is an out and proud Nazi who has his own podcast empire and whatever. And he's been in a lot of trouble before. He's also the one that one woman came to his door not too long ago and he got pepper sprayed her and everything, and he had to go into hiding and everything, which I say good, because
because he's the one that said when Trump got reelected, he's the one that said, your body, our choice.
Your body, our choice. Thank you for reminding
just
me.
Laughed like the absolute maniac he is. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, he's gotten tons of death threats and is currently hiding out in his mom's basement. I think his house got burnt down, I think.
No, I don't know.
I think his house got burnt down.
Did his house get burnt down? But anyway, let's hear what he had to say about what Musk did.
And then the straight up, that was a serious Roman. It wasn't even like a subtle, like a wave, like one of these, like a Laura Ingraham. Remember when Laura Ingraham did that? That was a straight up Sig Heil, loving Hitler energy. that was like a straight up with intensity Roman salute. And then
yeah, exactly.
Well, see, he calls it a Roman salute interchangeably with a Sig Heil. Like, they are the same thing for anyone who's trying to say that that's something different. And that is a video, by the way. So we can post that to the Substack for this episode this coming week, if you would like to watch it, because I don't know if he said Musk in that clip, but he's got the image of Musk in the video where he's talking. So,
and if people want to find that Substack, they can find it at
it's from the bomb shelter.
From the bomb shelter.
On the Substack, yeah.
On the Substack, right. Just go ahead and look.
If you search from the bomb shelter, you should be able to find us.
Yeah. Okay. So basically that's it. He gives away the whole ball game. And basically tells you, yeah, what you saw is what you saw. So, let's stop this nonsense. I know you had a quote here from Naomi Schulman about the normies.
Oh, yeah. And this was also pertains to the Bishop Buddy thing about being brave and speaking truth to power versus just going, oh, well, maybe that's not what he meant, or maybe that, kind of looking the other way. So author Naomi Schulman, and she tweeted this during Trump's first presidency, I believe. And it's making the rounds again. She said, nice people made the best Nazis. my mom grew up next to them. They got along, refused to make waves, looked the other way when things got ugly, and focused on happier things than politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that idea that, oh, don't bring politics into church. They were lovely people who turned their heads as their neighbors were dragged away. You know who weren't nice people? Resistors.
Right. And those are the
And
same
so,
people who are basically saying, "Oh, come on, you're misinterpreting what Musk did. He was just sending his heart out
yeah,
like this,
yeah. Okay.
And they don't want to deal with it. I mean, I
Well,
understand.
and this is my own mother who
Oh, really?
loves Jesus, but proudly brags that she doesn't watch the news and doesn't think that churches should be political. And I'm like, well, then you don't know Jesus, but okay. But this is her whole deal. Is she loves to just say, well, I just am nice to people in real life. I don't believe in politics. I believe in God, and I believe in being nice to people. That's not enough.
Sounds like my mother. Honestly.
Yeah.
Same.
Just
Oh, my mother was a wonderful Catholic woman who just hated gay people. But that didn't start. I mean, that she didn't. She used to be a Kennedy liberal, and then she gradually deformed into something I didn't recognize as my own mother by the time she died. But she
Yeah.
was one of those nice people too, just like your mom.
well, and that's why I say, I tried for years. I thought I could save my mom because I didn't understand. Like my mom voted for Trump in the first time he ran, and I said, "You raised me to be a feminist," which is extremely confusing because I also had my cat growing up was named Reagan. She's always identified as a Republican. But she raised me to be a feminist and thought that those were compatible, at least for a while, but then has never acknowledged how the Republican Party has become something unrecognizable in the last few decades.
Nazis.
Yeah. And so she still identifies as a Republican, as far as I know. Like I said, I don't talk to her anymore. But yeah, it's just this like, well, I'm just going to be nice to people and I'm going to, my mom likes gay people. She has gay friends. She has black and brown friends. And that's her deal is like, well, if I'm nice to them in real life, then I can vote however I want. They're not connected.
Not like that at all. All right. Hey, why don't we go ahead and take a little break? When we come back, we're going to revisit. Sometimes I have problems with certain words, like thesaurus, which I've never been able to pronounce without lisping.
That's a tricky one.
That is a tricky one. So we're going to talk about the idea of the apocalypse. Again, the kind of a different take on it. And we'll be right back with that right after this.
Are we allowed to talk?
You just did?
I know, but I mean, is it going to be recorded over the music?
Yep. It's not a podcast until you screw up or get hate mail.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we will from what I said today about.
I'm expecting it. All right, we'll let the music play a little longer and then we'll be right back. All right, back here on From the Bomb Shelter with Katie and Keith. And yes, I'm coming to you from an actual bomb shelter built in a 1956 mid-century modern brick ranch. And
Everyone's jealous.
I
Telling
know,
you.
I know. And it's the warmest room in the basement too, strangely enough. So
Nice.
it is. It's weird in a nice sort of way. But so we're back, and we were going to talk a little bit about. And Katie, I've covered this before, but wanted to say a little bit more about. When we say apocalypse, we're not talking about the end of the world, although we could see it from here. But we're not talking about it right now. There's a different meaning to it, Katie.
Yeah, so I mean they're connected meanings, I would say. And so I mentioned, I have a minor in religion and I used that a lot in teaching English. And this topic came up when I was teaching The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Read it, read it, read it.
That's commie literature.
Well,
Gotta keep that out of the
socialist.
keep it out of
Yes,
the classrooms.
it is very, very much banned in a lot of places in the U.S.
Which is why you should read it.
It's like we're back in McCarthy's era. No, Steinbeck was a socialist for sure. But he makes tons of allusions to the Bible in The Grapes of Wrath. You have to know the Bible to understand that book. And so there are a lot of references to apocalypse, but it's important to understand that the original meaning of apocalypse from a theological perspective is different than what we think of today in terms of like zombie apocalypse, everything is bad forever. Because the original meaning of apocalypse was actually a time when forces of good triumph over forces of evil after a bunch of destruction and death. So the destruction and death thing is still there. And so obviously when we say that this podcast is for surviving the apocalypse, like we know that there's a ton of destruction and death happening right now and that things feel very dark in the US and in the world. But we also want to make sure that we are adding in that kind of piece of hope that the original meaning was that after that happens, that sort of wipes the slate clean for something new and better and purer to grow, not in the way that evangelical so-called Christians would think of it, but in the way that those of us who want to see more justice, more empathy, compassion, tolerance of people's differences would want it to be, to see, children not starving and whatnot.
Out of the fiery hell of Trumpism, something beautiful might arise.
Well,
or not.
Yes. And I know that can be hard to feel hopeful about sometimes. Totally get that. Not trying to push toxic positivity on anyone. If you want to know more about this idea from a theological perspective, we played the video on the first episode of our podcast. You can search Welcome to the Apocalypse. It's with Lutheran evangelical pastor Nadia Bolz-Weber, who is the kind of pastor that Bishop Buddy is.
Yes, the kind that the right wing hates.
Yeah, she's not a Trump kind of Christian. Anyway, though, the Greek origin of the word apocalypse is apocalypsis, which literally means uncovering, as in to pull back the cover of something and reveal what is beneath. And actually, if you look up the term apocalypse this is from dictionary.com, which I have that app on my phone because I'm a nerd.
And a teacher.
And a teacher forever. One of the definitions actually says apocalypse, and then there's a link to the word revelation, as in Revelation in the New Testament, which is an example of apocalyptic literature from earlier times, like what we're talking about. And then if you follow the link to the word revelation, it says the act of revealing or disclosing. And so this is what Pastor Bolz-Weber talks about in the video and she's talking about the Me Too movement, but the idea is more relevant than ever, unfortunately, is just this idea that if you've ever heard someone say light is the best disinfectant, the idea that we might not have known that all of this ickiness was lurking in the corners of our country and of our world, but it's been there all along. And going around ignoring it or being unaware of it does nothing to get rid of it. And so unfortunately, what has to happen is we have to uncover it. We have to face it, call it out. And basically that means things are going to get worse and messier and harder before they get better.
And the thing is, so many people right now are looking around and they're stunned because of so much that has happened in just 1 week. And we're going to talk about this now. This idea of hypernormalization. You have so many people, and I'm kind of one of them too. It's like, can't you all see what's going on right now is not normal. It's
And that we've been headed towards this for so long.
yeah.
But a lot of people either choose to ignore it or literally just, I guess, are privileged enough to not even be aware of it. I'm going to play this short video talking about this concept of hypernormalization, and then we'll kind of tie it all together. Let's see.
Please tell me what's going on. Like, what is happening? Hi, welcome to the Hypernormalization Club. I'm so sorry that you're here. So hypernormalization was a term that was coined by a professor of anthropology named Alexei Yurchak, who wrote a book back in 2006 called Everything Was Forever Until It Was No More, The Last Soviet Generation. And basically, he was describing the paradox of life in the Soviet Union during the 1970s and the 1980s, where he says everyone knew the system was failing, but no one could imagine any alternative to the status quo. So politicians and citizens alike were resigned to maintaining the pretense of a functioning society. Now, this term was also picked up and used by Adam Curtis, who is a filmmaker. He created a documentary called Hypernormalization in 2016, where he argued that the economic crises in the 1970s in the West, basically governments, finance experts, and technological utopians gave up on trying to shape the complex real world, this is from Wikipedia, and instead established a simpler fake world for the benefit of multinational corporations that is kept stable by neoliberal governments. You can actually see the entire documentary on YouTube. But what you are feeling is hypernormalization. What you are feeling is the disconnect between seeing that systems are failing, that things aren't working, that structures are crumbling, that society is going through these massive shifts, and yet the institutions and the people that are in power just are like ignoring it and are pretending like everything is going to go on the way that it has. And we all know that that's not true. So you are feeling the discomfort between what you know to be true and how you're seeing people react to it. And so your vibes are not off, your instincts are not off. There's a term for it. It's called hypernormalization. You're welcome.
Okay, so I actually don't know who that woman was speaking. I'll have to look that up.
It was the mystery sociologist.
Yeah, I mean, I like to cite my sources. So I'll put a citation in the Substack when I post a link to that video. But I mean, that describes pretty well the reaction to Elon Musk's Nazi salute, right? Like the media response to that. Do you want to talk about that a little?
There has to be, though. There's also another reason for that media response. When you have a man that has more money than God and is going to sue everybody in sight for offending him, and you see a lot of the major news networks. I mean, ABC basically settled with Trump when they didn't have to, and the case was all on their side, and they could have pursued it and won. And now you have somebody like Musk who, if CNN says that was a Nazi salute, it was absolutely Nazi salute, he could sue them and drag them through the courts, drag them through the court of public opinion, have all the right wingers attack them, and most of the networks, they don't want to deal with this. It's sort of like when you see corporations now that are massively abandoning DEI initiatives, like the latest one was Target.
Oh, I'm so pissed.
I know you are, and I my wife is too, and I am, and it's like they don't want to deal with the fallout. So it in a way it helps you've got the forces of neoliberalism embodied in somebody like Musk, who basically, well, he's not really a neoliberal. He's more of a capitalist fascist in a way. But when he can control the narrative, and news organizations buckle under, and don't say anything, people are wondering, well, if CNN and NBC is not calling it a Nazi salute, then maybe it's not a Nazi salute.
Right. Well, and I haven't seen much in mainstream media about Musk's ties to the Nazi Party either.
No. And
I
they're
mean,
there.
he grew up in apartheid South Africa, and his parents
We're Nazis.
moved there to basically kind of expand the Nazi influence to another part of the world.
And his dad owned a diamond mine, and basically little Elon never had to worry about where his next meal was coming from.
Yeah, but he didn't get any love. That's clear.
Love like empathy is a bad thing.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not in the modern conservative movement, But that's the thing.
Yeah, this is the result of toxic masculinity on steroids, basically.
And we have Mark Zuckerberg now, who has decided that he is going to emulate Musk, and basically throws the hammer down on Meta and all of their platforms. Although we haven't really seen it, we've seen more ghouls come out of the ether on Threads, but it hasn't been nearly as bad as, say, X.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it will take a little time to get there, but I don't know if people have seen on Instagram, when you go to the search bar and you can type in a hashtag, you type in hashtag Republican and all the normal stuff pops up. If you type in hashtag Democrat, and at least this was a few days ago, I haven't checked it today, it could have changed, but you type in hashtag Democrat, I did it. It said no results found.
Well, Instagram is definitely becoming more hostile to the type of free speech that its users were used to doing. And Facebook has sort of been lost long ago. And I'm always going to plug fluff busting purity, folks. Just Google it. If you want your Facebook experience to be something other than the hellscape it's turned into, put that ad on your browser, and you can create Facebook the way it was 15 years ago. If you just want to see your friends and your family and only what you want to see, you can do it. But other than that, Facebook's trash.
And so, yeah, I mean, all of this is to say, to kind of bring this all back to that, what we were talking about with apocalypse and revelation and uncovering. That's kind of our goal here. We don't want to do the manufactured outrage clickbait thing that so much media has turned into when it comes to talking about news. We are trying to focus on the stuff that we think is actually significant, not get distracted by the three-ring circus that they are constantly running so that they can do God knows what behind the scenes, and to not gaslight you about what's happening, to not sane wash what's happening like so much of the mainstream media is doing, because that is contributing to hypernormalization, as is the Democrats, who are just winning the game of look how cooperative we can be with fascists.
Yeah, like Fetterman, who is my senator,
has lost his damn mind, apparently. My senator, Amy Klobuchar, just voted yes on Trump's Project 2025 author pick for director of the CIA.
Yep.
He got approved by the Senate, and my senator, Amy Klobuchar, Democrat, who I have voted for every time she's run, voted yes to confirm him.
She was having such a fun time at the inauguration, too.
What the shit, Amy?
Yeah, I know.
Not cool. Why are you playing nice with them?
Yeah, Fetterman's not just playing nice with them; he's actually enabling them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So many of them are. I'm still seeing Jasmine Crockett call them out. I'm still seeing AOC call them out. Katie Porter is always a warrior. It seems to be mostly women, shocking, but not all the female Democrats that are actually calling it as they see it and standing up to them. I don't know if the other Democrats don't realize, but the prize for winning the look how cooperative we are with fascists game is fascism.
Right.
That's the prize you win, guys.
You don't get any brownie points from these Nazis by playing along with them. You're a useful dupe. That's what you are. You're a useful dupe. I know we had a couple of other newsy things on here that I don't want to bombard our listeners with more of that. I mean, we know, Katie and I, we know, okay, that if you're listening to us, you're following the news. If you're listening to us, you know what's going on, okay? Most of you. Those of you who are not, who are here to learn, hey, we love having you. But
Yes.
I'm not gonna sit here and just replay basically the week in review and all the horrors that went on. But one of the things I did want to mention, and I've been on threads basically pushing this, is there are lots of little things that are happening, the silent things that kind of pass right through our consciousness that are the building blocks of fascism, such as, you may have noticed, removing the government's website for women's reproductive rights. It just happened. Silently removing the Spanish version of the White House website and reducing it to a button that says "Go home."
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's so many of those little things that are happening. The latest one from yesterday is the Air Force announced that it's not going to be teaching the history of the Tuskegee Airmen to their incoming airmen. They're going to completely erase the Tuskegee Airmen from Air Force history. Now that's
part of the get rid of DEI?
Yep, that's part of attacking wokeism.
Teaching history and facts about Americans who happen to be Black.
And that's the thing. It's telling you really how dark it's going to get. Because those who erase history are the people who control the present. And we're getting very George Orwellian here. But he's right. And this is what they're doing. It's all these little itty-bitty building blocks that build the wall, the giant wall of fascism.
And that's what's happening with TikTok right now, too. I mean, I keep seeing people from outside the U.S. saying, hey, apparently Americans aren't seeing the protests that are going on in other countries.
Nope.
Against Trump and against like the far right party that's running. Well, the election is today in Germany, I think, because TikTok is now basically state social media. And we're not seeing this stuff to scare people. And we don't want you to get so overwhelmed that you're just like, well, we're doomed. That's it. It's over. I'm just going to bury my head in the sand. We can't do that. We have to find a balance between staying informed and burning out.
Right.
Because we don't want to burn out, but and I can't remember her name. It's someone I follow on Instagram and she's wonderful and I'll plug her in the Substack, but she said it so perfectly the other day with one of her posts about the Elon Nazi salute. Acknowledging reality helps us make informed decisions. So we have to do that, because if we allow ourselves to be gaslit and go, well, that must not have been what it was, they're not actually doing this stuff, it's not actually that bad, then we can't make informed decisions about what to do next.
Was that perhaps? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we don't want to tell you what to do next either. You know, when I was saying before, like, I am angry, I am done giving those people the benefit of the doubt. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt. If you still have the emotional bandwidth to do that,
right,
and that's important to you, more power to you, right? The point is, you can't make those informed decisions about what to do next and where to put your energy if you don't know what's going on and acknowledge reality.
I was just going to ask if that was Heather Cox Richardson.
No, it wasn't.
Somebody
I can
else.
look her up. She's a librarian, I think.
Oh, I love librarians.
Probably why I follow her.
Librarians were the people who made my childhood bearable, quite frankly. But you should really be listening to Heather Cox Richardson. You can follow her on Facebook, and she basically comments daily about what's going on, and she's definitely a voice of reason. But we don't want to.
Okay, so the one I was just talking about, just to plug her handle on Instagram is Main and Vine.
Oh yeah, I know her.
If you've seen her, so she's a teacher, actually, it says, but
That's
she plugs good books all the time. She's got great video commentary on what's happening in the news and politics. So highly
Speaking of
recommend.
good books, and we don't want to leave you folks in the lurch. Obviously, we have some advice. We try and not just basically talk doom and gloom, but we have some practical suggestions for you to get through these periods of time. And I know,
Yes.
Katie, you talked about the book on tyranny, and there are
Mhm.
lessons that we can learn from that.
Yes. This book, and we talked about it, I think, on our last episode,
We did.
is by Timothy Snyder, who is a historian, and he's a professor at Yale, and his specialties are like European history and specifically the Holocaust. And he wrote this book and published it during Trump's first term in office. It's called On Tyranny, 20 Lessons. If you can see, you see that? It's blurring it out.
Mm-hmm.
There. On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century. It is very, if you can see how small it is and short, it is a very quick
Take
read.
it from me, folks. It is small and short, even though you can't see what she's holding up on video.
Oh my God. But I didn't, it is short, but it is dense, obviously, because of the subject matter. And so I don't want to do, an hours long list of because it's 20 lessons, like I said. So I thought I would just talk about the first two today. And if people find it useful, I can keep going and talk about a lesson or two or three each episode. And you've probably heard about the first one, which is do not obey in advance. That one has been everywhere. But specifically, the whole little lesson blurb here is most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want and then offer themselves without being asked, which is what we're seeing so much of the media doing. It's what we're seeing Mark Zuckerberg doing.
Corporations doing.
Corporations like Target bending the knee. We'll get rid of our DEI initiative. A citizen who adapts in this way is teaching power what it can do. And then he goes into more detail about what this looked like in Nazi Germany. Yes, Hitler was democratically elected and came to power that way. But that doesn't mean that there were not still institutions and checks and balances in place that could have potentially stopped him. But a lot of people then did what a lot of people are doing now and said, oh, he won't actually do all that awful stuff he's been saying. Project 2025. He was just trying to scare us. They won't actually do that. And of course, yes, they did it, all of it. And people and the nice people looked the other way while they did it. So, he talks about one of my favorite psychological experiments, the Milgram experiment. If you're not familiar, it was actually done at Snyder's Yale after World War II, because this psychologist, Stanley Milgram, wanted to understand, this is when Nazis during the Nuremberg trials were being tried for all these crimes against humanity. And he's going, how did so many people go along with this? Not only do these things, but also look the other way, not try to stop it. So he did this experiment, and I used to teach this as part of my Lord of the Flies unit. He told people that there was someone on the other side of this wall who they couldn't see that was hooked up to a shock machine. And so the subject of the experiment was told, you have to push a button and shock this person every time they get a question wrong that you ask them.
They were basically 57 people were given quiz, and the questions got worse. I mean, more difficult as it went on.
And the shock levels got higher.
The shock levels got higher, right.
And so the key thing to understand is they were not actually shocking anyone. Obviously, that would have been unethical. Some people say it was still unethical what he did, but there were actors on the other side of the wall pretending to be in great pain as the shock level supposedly went up. And he wanted to know, how far will regular people go if a supposed authority figure tells them to hurt someone that they don't even know? And so, I mean, I don't remember the exact statistics. I used to teach them, but Basically, Milgram, it says Milgram grasped, I'm reading from the book, that people are remarkably receptive to new rules in a new setting. They are surprisingly willing to harm and kill others in the service of some new purpose if they are so instructed by a new authority. And I would put authority in quotation marks. I mean, someone says they're an authority. Do you believe them? And this is Milgram, a quote of Milgram speaking. I found so much obedience that I hardly saw the need for taking the experiment to Germany because he conducted the experiment in the US. So basically his conclusion was that's why the Holocaust happened, because that's human nature, apparently. A lot of people are willing to hurt and kill people they don't even know if someone that they perceive as an authority figure tells them to.
Nice people make the best Nazis.
Exactly. Because, you know, a lot of us are people pleasers and they didn't want to tell the doctor in the lab coat, no, I'm not going to keep going with this.
Right. He said, the lab coat guy said, but you must continue the experiment. And so
then most of them did.
They did. All right. Our second lesson.
Second lesson, defend institutions.
Okay.
So he says, it is institutions that help us to preserve decency. They need our help as well. Do not speak of our institutions unless you make them yours by acting on their behalf. Institutions do not protect themselves. They fall one after the other unless each is defended from the beginning. So choose an institution you care about, a court, a newspaper, a law, a labor union, and take its side. We mentioned on another episode donating to the ACLU. They are all about protecting the institution of the justice system, the legal branch of our government.
Planned Parenthood is another good one.
Planned Parenthood, yep. And the point, again, is not to completely overwhelm yourself and try to protect every single institution and stop every bad thing from happening. Pick something that you feel passionate about, that feels like you are capable of sticking with it, that it's sustainable, and try to find a way to defend it.
Right. And I know that we're also seeing a lot of ICE raids now. They promised us and they delivered. I was on Neighbors just this morning, and somebody said they saw ICE making raids in McKeesport, which is the community right next to where I live. So, in essence, I wrote, the war's come home. And, of course, on Neighbors, you got a whole bunch of right-wing assholes who are basically cheering the whole thing and making fun of anybody who, you know, is saying, you know, this is, you know, come on, folks, let's have some basic humanity when there's really none left in these people. So protecting immigrants is a big one, I think, right now. Know how to say La Migra loudly. If you see ICE in your neighborhood, and like I said, they're right next door where I live, McKeesport, Pennsylvania, and you may see they're hitting a lot of smaller towns, not just the big cities. So
because people don't expect that.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people on social media with suggestions on what to do if you are there when an ICE raid is happening. You know, again, not telling you to do anything. It depends on how safe you feel and what your legal status is in this country, et cetera. As a white woman, I would say probably if I didn't have my kids with me and I was in that situation, you know, the best advice I've seen is let's use our Karen reputation to our advantage here. Step in front of the ICE agents. What?
We'll get letters now. My name is Karen, and would you stop with that?
Right.
You guys
I mean,
know what we're saying.
Just be as obnoxious as you can. Like, I want to see your badge. I want to see the warrant. What's going on here? Who just delay.
One of the things, though, is that you have to gauge whether the police are willing to arrest you. Because a lot of cops will arrest you.
And whether you're willing to be arrested.
Whether you're willing to be arrested. A lot of cops will simply arrest you and let the judge sort it out. They know that they're wrong. They know they have no reason to arrest you, but they can do it, so they do.
Right.
You know, because they can't be sued for it. They have what's known as qualified immunity. And if you are being arrested and you flinch, you could be taken down hard. I don't want to discourage people from speaking up, but don't provoke needlessly.
Right.
Police
well,
because they're
and know the
police
risks.
officers are dangerous people.
Yeah. And I have a know your rights document here for if ICE visits your home too. And, you know, this applies to schools. I know there was confusion about that school in Chicago where originally they thought it was ICE coming for a kid. And then it turned out to be the Secret Service coming because the kid posted an anti-Trump video, which is arguably worse. Either way, the school didn't let them in. I hope schools are brushing up on all of this legal stuff too, because apparently they don't consider schools off limits. But
yeah, use your rights while you still have them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point. Again, this is do not obey in advance. So a court, and this document comes from the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Again, I will post a link to it on the Substack for this week. But it says you do not have to open the door. You do not have to open the door or let the officers into your home unless they have a valid search warrant signed by a judge. So this is an important distinction. An ICE deportation warrant is not the same as a search warrant. If this is the only document they have, they cannot legally come inside unless you verbally agree to let them in. If they say they have a search warrant signed by a judge, as opposed to just their ICE deportation warrant, not the same thing, ask them to slide it under the door or hold it up to a window so you can see. Check the details on the warrant. It needs to have the correct name and address on it. It needs to be signed by a judge. If it doesn't have all of that, you do not have to open the door. If at any point you decide to speak with them, which you do not have to do if they don't have a warrant signed by a judge, you don't have to open the door. You can speak to them through the door or step outside and close the door. If they don't have a signed warrant, I wouldn't do that.
You can also tell them, speak to my attorney. Speak to me through my attorney. That usually ends things.
Yeah. You have a right to remain silent from all the law and order you've ever watched in your life.
Use it. Use that right. Because there's almost no benefit to talking to cops. None.
Correct.
You do
no
have to.
hablo inglés.
No, yeah, right. So, but again, you know, you have to be careful nowadays because the police have supported Trump because they believe that Trump is going to give them complete immunity, not just qualified, but complete immunity for all acts. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, then we are definitely living in a police state. We are living in a fascist police state if that happens. We're getting closer.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and again, I'm from Minnesota, you know.
Minnesota.
We also, hey, it's not how I said it. But, you know, this is where Derek Chauvin, ex-police officer, felon Derek Chauvin, murdered George Floyd, thinking that he would have immunity for it, and was actually convicted of murder and is now serving his sentence, which Trump cannot commute because...
It's a state sentence.
State sentence.
In another court and another day, he might have been exonerated.
Oh,
people
absolutely.
Need to
Different
that,
jury. Yeah. So, yeah, again, this is knowing your rights, and then you make an informed decision from there. We are not telling you what to do with that information, but knowing is power.
Okay, so we're going to take a brief break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that Overton window you may have heard about, and how you don't allow energy vampires to sap your resolve. We'll be right back with that in just a minute. back here on From the Bomb Shelter with Katie and Keith. And if you're wondering, I say Katie's name first because alphabetically A becomes before E. And something just crashed behind me in the bomb shelter, but I don't know what it is.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody heard that. It just went boom.
I didn't hear it, but obviously it wasn't a bomb because
nothing's on fire, so that's good.
You're sheltered from bombs.
I'm sheltered from bombs, but I'm not sheltered from fire. If nothing's on fire, I don't care.
I'll let you know if I see smoke.
No, that's right. You can see behind me, and I can't. But
Yeah.
I think something just fell off. It's probably my wife's collection of those weird-headed little things, the Funko figures. She has like 100 Funkos. But anyway, before we broke, we were talking a little bit about the Overton Window. And it's something that I know there were some right-wingers who were talking about Musk, who were saying, this is how we move that window. And what it really is it's basically the Overton Window is what is acceptable discourse. So if you notice, now we're actually talking about public figures giving Nazi salutes, which I'm old enough to remember when such a thing would have been completely obscene back in like the 70s and 80s. But if you mention something enough and just get it into the conversation, you begin to slowly normalize the topic.
And and then for anyone who's familiar with like Richard Spencer, that is a big goal of his movement, is to basically change the PR around being a Nazi.
Right.
Because a lot of us think of Nazis as like American History X, skinheads, tattoos like Pete Hegseth has. Richard Spencer and, Nick Fuentes and those guys have the nice boy haircut and they wear the suit and tie and they don't have tattoos and they look very acceptable.
They look like your family accountant.
Right. And so the idea is that they can then do these dog whistles and bring these far right white supremacist Nazi ideas into mainstream conversation, and that more Americans will become accepting of it, which I would argue they have been very successful at, actually.
Yeah.
So then, you had mentioned that Elon Musk is supposed to be like this neoliberal, and somebody, I see people on social media say Musk is a registered Democrat, and it's like, well, first of all, so what? Look at what he does, not who he's registered to vote for. But also, this idea of the political spectrum, which the Overton Window references, I have always said, we think of a spectrum as being a line with two extreme ends. Most spectrums, you can bend them into a circle, and those two extremes will end up touching. And I think that's very true of the political spectrum. You go far enough left, you end up right.
Mm-hmm.
You go far enough right, you end up left. Neither of those places is where we want to be. So for anyone who call it far left or far right, if it's anti-Semitic, if it's racist, if it's whatever, then that's what it is.
A big part of moving this window has occurred on the internet.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Things that were, I came into the internet in like 1998. So I'm one of those old G guys from way back when a lot of it was Usenet discussions and things like that. But now there are so many, and if you have kids, my God, what do you do? We used to have like Net Nanny. I don't know if you remember that program that you would install on your computers.
My parents didn't pay any attention to what I did on the internet,
yeah.
so no. And my kids, thankfully, are young enough that they don't have, phones. I can very much keep track of what they're doing.
As I said, I would rather let my kid find porn than find Nazis on the internet.
Right?
If you had that choice.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the algorithms are such where you're always like a few clicks away from some really objectionable content from fascists.
Boys and men especially, they've done studies that show that if it's an account associated with the male gender, the algorithm is much more likely to push that stuff. Misogynistic, white supremacist. I mean, that's how boys are getting red pilled. That's why we saw all these Gen Z boys vote for Trump. It's because of, the Joe Rogans and the Andrew Tates, and then because of what they're seeing on social media.
All the little Joe Rogans that are out there trying to be the next Joe Rogan.
Oh, of course.
And I noticed a lot of gaming platforms, a lot of gaming.
Apparently, Roblox. Be really careful if your kids play Roblox, who they're talking to.
Absolutely.
My kids don't play anything where they're talking online to people they don't know. But some parents might not even realize that that's part of that platform. I wanted to play this video again from social media where this woman she's actually a big advocate for disabled people. She's also a Black woman, so she talks about anti-racist and anti-colonialism stuff a lot. But in this one specifically, she's talking about the Overton window and how to not allow fascists to shift it. So I'll play it and then we can talk about it.
I promised that if I make this video, I get a free dinner. And I was not too redacted when that promise was made to forget. So let's talk about something called the Overton Window. The Overton Window is a political concept. It basically shows what is politically acceptable to most people at any one given time. And often moving that window of acceptability is the purpose of culture wars. When you hear somebody say something extremely outlandish, particularly violent, it's not because they expect those things to happen right now. It is for them to further pull those ideas into public consciousness, moving the window so it becomes more and more acceptable. If I say to you, the sky is blue, and you tell me the sky is green, you saying the sky is green brings it into public discourse. But me arguing with you or debating with you about the sky being blue is what puts it on equal footing with the sky being blue. And the middle ground opinion of the sky being either blue or green is that the sky is blue-green, a combination of the two. Therefore favoring the person who outlandishly said that the sky was green, pulling the Overton window in their direction. That's why we don't debate fascists, because our ideas are not on equal footing with our own. I will pick the restaurant, you bring your wallet.
Okay, so
I like that.
Whoops. Yeah.
So I was promised that if I make this video, I get a free dinner, and I was not too.
Just a super quick then review of the Overton window, but I think it's a really important thing to think about when you're engaging on social media, especially. Yes, we call out fascists, but we try not to engage with them as if their ideas are valid. Again, because she said, and you said this too, they don't necessarily even believe what they're saying or think that that's going to happen right away. The point is to make it more and more acceptable by getting people to talk about it more.
Yeah, I thought she did a really good job basically defining what happens when the Overton window shifts. And you notice it always seems to be shifting to the right in America. It never shifts to.
I mean, it
hasn't
goes
shifted
back
to the
and
left
forth.
since the 1960s, I think.
Well, I think when Obama was in office, we saw a bit of a shift. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely been since Reagan shifting more and more to the right overall. And, this is something that's hard for me because I do sometimes give people the benefit of the doubt when I shouldn't. But also, if someone says something really fucking stupid, I just want to prove them wrong. And that's exactly what they're looking for.
Exactly.
And so a friend of mine put it in this way that I thought was so perfect and that I try to remember. If you think of it as trolls, especially, fascist trolls, people who are trying to shift the Overton window, they also get off on upsetting you and getting you to argue with them. Mm-hmm. And so if you just block them and don't engage with them, you give them blue balls, which is, it's so fun to think of that way. But then the bonus is, you like that?
Actual pain in that region?
I hope so.
Okay.
Psychological pain, at least. But the bonus is then you're not wasting your intellectual and emotional energy on energy vampires because that's all they are. You're not going to change their mind.
I remember an old meme from back in the old internet days. Some guy basically telling his wife, "I can't go to bed right now. Somebody disagreed with me on the internet."
Right. Yeah. And, again, there can be good faith disagreements. And I'm not saying don't ever engage in those. I'm talking about when someone is being a troll, when someone is spouting obviously, fascist talking points or misogynistic talking points, not arguing in good faith. And if any, have you watched What We Do in the Shadows, Keith? Are you familiar?
No, I'm familiar with the work, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. Amazing show on Hulu. It's like a mockumentary about vampires who have sort of forgotten to try to take over the world like they were supposed to and have just sort of gotten caught up in the minutia of the human world. It's hilarious, but there's a character on there, Colin Robinson, who is not a typical vampire who feeds on blood. He's an energy vampire. So he feeds by boring people, or one of his favorite things is to go on the internet and like mansplain to a woman who knows what she's talking about and get her to give him all of her intellectual energy. So I just try to think of Colin Robinson sitting in his basement on his laptop too, trying to feed off of my energy. And I just go, nope, and shut it down.
Oh, now I've got to see this show.
Oh, you got to watch it. It's so good. It's so good.
But that's the whole idea. These people really get off on that.
And they know they're doing it. That's what's beautiful about that character. He knows exactly what he's doing.
And you'll get this. You'll get these fascists online will say, "Did I trigger you? Oh, did I trigger you, liberal?
Little snowflake.
Yeah, you block me because you can't win this argument. Those people, just block them. And then the thing they have to do, and this is me, okay, block them and forget about them.
Yeah.
Don't go to bed thinking about that fucking asshole. I could have strangled him. No. That's what they want. That's what they want. I get upset even thinking about this.
I know, and that's what they want.
Anyway, your time, your emotional energy, and your mental energy. That's the thing they want to take from you. So
save that for the real fights.
Exactly.
You're going to need it. Not only for the real fights, but just to survive this.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Well, before we go, I want to say something. I'm going to give myself a little plug here. What we don't do on this show is rant and rave about what's happening right now. We want to do a little more in-depth analysis and talk about things that we can do to either work with the system to try and keep it going, and work within ourselves to keep ourselves sane. But a lot of what I do, I'm at work. I'm lucky to work in a job where I can put the thing in my ear and listen to news all day. So I listen to progressive talk radio all day. And sometimes
I would argue that is not healthy, and you should not be doing that.
I should not be doing this, but I will freely admit to being an addict when it comes to news. And I'm thinking, I'm listening to progressive talk radio. I could be worse. I could be listening to Fox. So at least I'm listening to the good guys. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I'll switch over to MSNBC when something is going on. But by the time I get home, I need, my poor wife, you have to understand that I will literally make her a captive audience of my rants and raves, and she doesn't deserve that. And I realize this. So instead of ranting and raving at my wife, it's your turn, folks. So sometimes daily, I will cut a very quick video talking about my view, and I'm shamelessly ripping off Keith Olbermann's old countdown. And Olbermann has a podcast. If you're not listening to it, listen to it. He's awesome. I've always been a fan of Keith Olbermann. So basically, it's the inspiration for what I do. So every now and then, not every day, but maybe every other day, I'll do a quick 10-minute, 12-minute rant online, and I'm always encouraging feedback from that, even the hate mail. Because if you're not getting hate mail, you're not doing your job, right?
Don't read the hate mail, though. Don't respond to it, Keith. Don't give the energy vampires.
I would respond to it, but I still might read it. But you probably could tell from the subject matter what it's going to be, so I don't know. I'm always the kind of person, and I've always been this way, who looks under the rock to see what the slugs are doing. It's just a neurotic compulsion that I have as part of my makeup.
And this is what we keep saying. We need to know that. That is how we make informed decisions. That is about the peeling back, the uncovering, the revealing that an apocalypse, entails in order to disinfect, right? To wipe the slate clean. That needs to happen. But this leads me into a nice segue for our next episode. One of our topics will be how to exit the stress cycle. Because yes, stress is going to be a big part of our lives for at least the next 4 years. And that's, part of the human experience anyway, but we cannot stay in that stress state all the time. We will literally wear out our adrenal glands. That is how burnout happens. We need to exit the stress cycle. And there's concrete ways to do that. There's science behind all of this. I'll give you citations.
Remember, she's a teacher, folks. You got to listen.
Yeah. But we cannot allow ourselves to stay in that fight or flight activated nervous system place all the time, because we will burn out, and that's exactly what they want. Keith.
Yes, I know.
I'm guilty of it too, and I did it for his entire first 4 years in office. And so I have vowed to myself that I am going to do better this time. I have kids now. I didn't have kids for most of the first time he was in office, so that sort of forces me to, but we have to survive it before we can make something better.
Survive it for the sake of ourselves and our loved ones.
Right.
Because
now, did you say that that's on the YouTube channel?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention. Yeah, it's on our YouTube channel, which, of course, is From the Bomb Shelter with Katie and Keith.
And I can link to that on the Substack for this week as well.
Absolutely. I've been fooling around with the YouTube sites because I wanted to give our show a dedicated site. YouTube fought me. I thought they were going to win. In the end, I was able to outlast them. Who owns? Oh, that's Google thing. I don't know who owns Google.
I don't know, but Google's been doing some shady shit too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just another giant, mindless, faceless corporation that controls our avenues of communications.
Oh, and speaking of which, and I mentioned this in the Substack for our last episode, but we didn't say it on air. If you are concerned about government surveillance, as we should be, you may want to consider downloading the browser DuckDuckGo, or some other browser that does a better job of protecting your privacy than the ones like Google do. And no, incognito mode does not mean Google isn't tracking your information.
That's right.
DuckDuckGo blocks trackers much better.
It's not. I've tried it. It's not bad. It's not bad. The problem that I had with DuckDuckGo was I got when you go to YouTube on DuckDuckGo, for some reason the sound gets distorted by static. I was getting the static on my YouTube videos on that website. I mean, I had no other problems with it. It works very, very well, but I don't know what the deal was. Maybe YouTube doesn't play well with DuckDuckGo, because that's why I switch websites like some people. I switch web platforms like some people switch socks. I'm always trying a new one. Opera is another one you can go to, except it's owned by the Chinese. So now it used to be owned by the Norwegians. You have DuckDuckGo. Of course, you have Edge. Funny name for a website, but anyway.
Oh, is that Microsoft?
Edge, Microsoft, right? Google, Chrome. What's that other one? It's still not so bad. Firefox.
Not so bad in terms of tracking.
Not so bad in terms of tracking. No. So there's lots of websites out there you can go to. Safari, if you're on Apple products, which I'm on. Safari just confuses me, so I don't use it. But yeah, DuckDuckGo is a good one.
One to try.
Yeah. So all right, we better get out of here before we go over an hour and a half. But we have
All
so
right.
much fun doing this. We
I
look
know.
forward to this every week.
But we need to now exit the stress cycle and go do something joyful and let our nervous systems get out of fight or flight.
That's right, because there are 2 championship football games on today, folks. So
Oh, great. That's great for your nervous
that's
system.
great for me it is. You know.
As I'm about to go hang out with my 4-year-old and 7-year-old.
Oh, that's
Cool.
great.
Never a dull moment, but
No.
it's a different kind of stress at least.
Yeah, but it's a good stress.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That's it for this episode of From the Bomb Shelter with Katie and Keith. We will see you next weekend.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.